Why staying single is the best thing you can do. There is a silence that few dare to face those nights. When you return to an empty room, the noise outside still lingers, but inside your heart there echoes a strange quiet. Many people immediately turn on the TV, open their phone, or reach out to someone to fill that emptiness, afraid of being alone with themselves. But if you stop and ask sincerely, are we truly searching for love, or are we only running away from the fear of loneliness? Modern society has written a script that growing up means you must have a partner, that happiness is only complete when someone walks beside you. From movies to songs to the relatives' questions at every family gathering, all repeat the same message: you are only truly okay once you are no longer alone. That very message has planted a silent belief in our minds that living alone is a failure, that if no one is by your side, then your worth is somehow incomplete. However, there is a truth that few are willing to accept. Many relationships are not built on love, but on fear. People step into them not because they are grounded and full, but because they are afraid of emptiness, silence, and confronting their own mind. And from that invisible chains are created, binding freedom, suffocating peace, and making people lose the truth within themselves. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that a man should not fear death, but fear never beginning to live, living by habit, living by society's script, and living to avoid the void, which has never been real life. This is why choosing to be alone is not a weakness but a powerful declaration. I will live my life in my own way. Being single is not a gap to be filled. It is a space where you build the fortress of your inner self. In that silence, you will begin to hear the voice within, the questions long buried beneath the noise of life. What do I truly want? What values am I willing to defend? What dreams have I abandoned? These questions that once seemed frightening are actually doors that open into freedom. Only when you are brave enough to sit down alone and look straight at them will you know where you must go and who is truly worthy to walk beside you on that path. Being single is not a punishment, but a chance to practice freedom, self, and control and strength. It is the time to build discipline, strengthen your health, focus on your work and passion, and above all, learn to love the companionship of yourself. When you can stand firmly in silence, you no longer need to beg for the acceptance of others. When you are no longer afraid of being left behind, you are finally ready to love with freedom, not necessity. The truth is that millions of people out there rush into relationships not because they have found love, but because they fear the emptiness of sleeping alone, the eyes of society, and the fear of facing their own inner voice. But that fear leads them into fragile bonds, endless compromises, and eventually the loss of themselves. Meanwhile, the one who dares to be alone and who dares to walk in solitude is the one who is quietly accumulating the greatest strength. And that is why staying single can be the best thing you ever do for your life. Because only in that space will you truly discover who you are, and once you know, no one can take that certainty away from you. On this journey, we will walk together through 10 harsh but liberating truths, 10 foundation stones that will build the fortress of your inner self. Each truth will bring you closer to freedom, peace, and wholeness from within. This is not only a message, it is an invitation to pause for a moment, breathe, and allow yourself to listen. Suppose you want to build a life where no one can touch inner freedom. Walk with me on this path. Hit subscribe so that with every step you are reminded that true strength lies within you. Truth 1. Being alone is true freedom. Freedom is a word that sounds familiar, but is rarely lived to its fullest. Many people believe they are free, Yet in reality, every decision in their day is influenced by someone else, from what to eat, where to go, to how they must adjust their emotions to keep a balanced relationship. Being alone opens another space where you do not need permission, do not need negotiation, and do not need to force yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. You wake up and know that your time, energy, and choices belong to you. When an unhealthy relationship takes over, small pieces of freedom are taken away without you even noticing. At first, they are only small things. Today, you skip your workout because they want you to stay home. Tomorrow, you cancel plans with friends to avoid an argument. And slowly, you begin to live a life where what you genuinely wish to get pushed further and further to the back. Freedom does not vanish by heavy chains, but by thin threads that bind tighter each day. That is why choosing to be alone is the only way to reclaim the entire sky of your life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. True freedom is not in how much money you have or how many opportunities, but in your ability to own every decision, small or large, without living under fear or the expectations of others. Being alone gives you the space to practice that. When no voices are interrupting, you learn to hear yourself more clearly. When there are no judging eyes, you dare to try, fail, and walk in the direction you believe is right. Take a simple, everyday example. You can choose to spend an evening learning a new skill without needing to explain why you are not giving that time to someone else. You can take a spontaneous trip to breathe again without negotiating endless details to please another person. Those small decisions, repeated over time, create a sense of freedom so powerful that nothing outside can compare to it. Freedom does not mean you must live isolated or closed off. It means you hold full authority over your choices. You can open the door for someone to enter, but it is your decision, not a requirement. When a relationship is chosen from freedom rather than fear, it becomes healthier and deeper. Because once you are steady within yourself, you do not need to control or cling to anyone. You only need to walk together when both truly want the same path. Many fear being alone because they think it equals emptiness. But in truth, it is in that very space that you rediscover what you had forgotten. You begin to hear your own laughter again, to see joy in the most minor things, and to remember that you once had dreams and desires that never really disappeared. You can finally live when someone else's current no longer carries you away. And that is why being alone is true freedom. Not freedom on paper, but freedom you can feel each morning when you open your eyes, each night when your head rests on the pillow. Freedom to do, think, feel, and live without fear. And from that foundation of freedom, you can finally build everything else more firmly and enduringly. Truth 2. Peace does not come from others, but from yourself. There is a widespread misconception that peace will arrive when we find the right person, that as long as we have a strong enough shoulder to lean on, every storm will disappear. But the truth is different. If you have not yet found peace within yourself, you will still feel empty, even with thousands of people surrounding you. On the other hand, once you have built inner stillness, no one can take it away from you. Many step into relationships hoping to be healed, but what they often receive is just another layer of complication. When your sense of security depends on another person's attitude, emotions, or words, you are handing over the most crucial key of your life. One day they smile and you feel light. The next day they are silent and you sink into worry. The mind is pulled around like a boat without an anchor, forever tossed by waves. True peace is not something you beg from others, but a skill you train in the silence of your own being. It is when you can sit in an empty room without fear, when you can walk alone through a crowded street without feeling lost, when you can savor the simple moments of drinking a cup of coffee, reading a page of a book without needing anyone to witness or share it. These seemingly small moments are the very foundation of stability. Seneca once wrote that only the courageous are genuinely free. Courage here does not mean charging into battle, but daring to face the emptiness within. When you dare to sit down and listen to the whispers of anxiety, of regret, of doubt, and slowly accept them, you realize they hold no power to destroy you. They are only passing clouds while you are the vast sky itself. For example, someone after a breakup may feel lighter, even though it initially seemed like they lost everything. The reason is that they are no longer bound to chase another person's moods, no longer forced to stay up late, explaining, soothing, or clinging. They realize peace is not found in controlling others, but in managing their thoughts and reactions. Peace comes from choice. The choice to let go of what does not belong to you. The choice not to sink into meaningless arguments. The choice to focus only on what is within your control. When you truly grasp this, you understand that being alone is not the absence of peace, but the opportunity to practice, to strengthen, to make peace a permanent part of who you are. And once peace belongs to you, no one can take it away. People may leave, circumstances may change, but you still hold your ground. That is the peace no relationship can ever give you. Only you can build it. And from that foundation you step into another truth. To protect peace, you must learn to guard your most precious resource, your time. Truth 3. Time is wealth, do not burn it on the wrong people. If there is one asset given equally to all of us, it is time. No matter whether you are rich or poor, no matter your background, each day passes with the same 24 hours. But how we use it determines the enormous difference between a life lived fully and a life wasted. The problem is that most people unknowingly burn away their time on people and relationships that are not worthy of it. Think about the years someone may stay trapped in a toxic relationship. Each day repeats the same script: arguments, silence, and reconciliation without solving the problem. A month goes by, then a year, then 5 years. When they finally look back, they are shocked to realize youth has slipped away in exhaustion, dreams have been abandoned, and they no longer recognize themselves. That is not only emotional damage, it is also a ruthless waste of the most precious thing: time. Being single gives you a decisive advantage and complete authority to invest that time into what truly matters. You can spend mornings training, evenings reading, weekends building new skills, or simply resting to restore energy. No more obligatory appointments or long hours of pointless arguments. You now have the chance to use every minute according to your values. And from those small choices, a completely new future is built. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, "Do not let the affairs of others absorb your life." Your time is not an unlimited asset for anyone to spend. You are losing bigger opportunities each time you hand it over to meaningless conversations, gatherings, to prove something, or people who do not truly value you. The opportunity to learn something new, to begin a project, or to spend time in silence, understanding yourself more deeply. A familiar picture in modern life is fatigue after a long workday. Many return home, but instead of spending a little time to rest or develop themselves, they dive into repeated arguments. They do not realize that every passing hour is a withdrawal they can never recover. If you knew that every moment slipping away is gone forever, you would be far more careful where you place it. Being single does not mean isolation. It means intentional allocation of time. You choose relationships that bring positive energy, activities that move you closer to your goals, and you decide to protect quiet moments to recharge your strength. When your time is no longer shredded into pieces for useless things, you find yourself moving further, standing steadier, and feeling freer. Time invested in yourself has never been a waste because it gives back a stronger version of who you are. Many fear being alone because they think time will then pass in vain. But in reality, that is when you control every minute, turning it into the bricks that build your inner fortress. You can learn a language, try a new job, or write down what you want for the coming year. Singleness gives you focus, and focus is the factor that turns time into results. No more distractions, no more being pulled away. You become the true master of your own time. Time cannot be borrowed and it cannot be bought. That is why wasting it on the wrong people and relationships is one of life's greatest mistakes. Singleness teaches you this lesson directly. It forces you to look back and ask, how am I spending each day? Am I placing it in what truly has value, or am I trading it to keep a connection that no longer has meaning? When you treat time as wealth, you treasure it as your breath. You learn to say no to what is unnecessary, to prioritize what is essential, and to understand that one day lived in alignment with your values is worth more than a year spent pleasing others. And from that awareness, you arrive at another essential truth. Freedom and time only hold real meaning when you learn self-control in every action and emotion. Truth 4. Self-control is the real strength. There is a great paradox in life. Many people think they are strong because they can control others, impose their will, or influence emotions around them. But the truth is that the greatest strength lies in the ability to master yourself. A person who cannot control anger, cannot keep promises to themselves, cannot stand firm before temptation, no matter how many others they influence, is still weak at the core. And it is precisely the stage of being alone that becomes the ideal ground to train this self-control. Epictetus once said that no one is truly free and has not mastered themselves. These words echo across time because they touch the very core of human nature. Self-control is not about forcing clarity or choosing your response instead of being dragged away by instinct. When you are single, no one dictates your schedule, no one reminds you to sleep on time or forces you to rise early, and no one disciplines you when you skip your training. This is the moment you are tested to see if you can become the commander of your own life. Your day can begin with hitting snooze and staying under the covers, or it can start with rising early, exercising, reading, and preparing your mind for the day ahead. No one else knows which you choose but you know, and every choice shapes the person you become. Self-control means knowing that short-term comfort often steals long-term rewards, and you accept the discipline today to gain a greater freedom tomorrow. In daily life, we often see people unable to control their emotions. They flare up in anger, sink into sadness, or get swept away by careless words. They let the outside world steer the ship of their inner life while they sit helplessly against the waves. Self-control is the skill that flips the game. Instead of letting the world define your mood, you choose your reaction and where to place your focus. And when you can do this, you begin to understand how precious inner calm truly is. A simple example is when you receive criticism from a co-worker. People without self-control react immediately, argue, or quietly let anger poison their whole day. But a person with trained self-control pauses, takes a deep breath and asks, "Does that comment define my worth?" That brief pause, that small space is the true strength. It gives you the power of choice. You are free in choice. Being single trains self-control because you have no one to blame. You cannot say, "I was late because I was waiting on someone else," or "lost focus because they disturbed me." Every result comes from you alone. This may sound harsh, but in truth it is a gift. It forces you to grow up, take responsibility, and become more disciplined daily. And when you achieve it, you build a foundation no one can break. Marcus Aurelius once emphasized that the color of one's thoughts dyes the soul. If you constantly indulge in laziness, anger, and complaints, your soul will soon be stained by those colors. But if you practice patience, calm, focus, and self-control, your soul will carry the colors of strength, steadiness, and freedom. And there is no greater gift than that. Self-control does not mean becoming a cold machine, but knowing how to keep balance. You can feel emotions but not let them drive you. You can enjoy pleasure but not become its slave. You can fall but you know how to stand up right away. That is the real strength. And once you have mastered self-control, you move to a higher level, learning to love your companionship without needing anyone else to fill the space. Truth 5. Learn to love your own companionship. There is a truth that few dare to face. Most of us fear being alone, not because no one is beside us, but because we have not yet learned how to become our own companion. The quiet room, the meal eaten alone, and the evening without messages make many people feel abandoned. But in reality, they are only mirrors forcing us to face the person within. Those who have not learned to love themselves will always try to fill the emptiness with noise. They keep the TV running all day, scroll endlessly online, and throw themselves into relationships to escape the hollow feeling. But this busyness never cures the fear. It only delays the most critical meeting of life, the meeting with oneself. When you are alone, you finally hear the most profound questions. What do I truly want? What am I chasing only because others expect it? What dream have I kept silent for too long? At first, these questions feel uncomfortable because they are not easy to answer. But that discomfort is the first step toward freedom, because it forces honesty and breaks the habit of living as a copy. Learning to love your own companionship does not mean arrogance or isolation. It means you can value alone time as a chance to recharge, explore, and heal. Instead of seeing loneliness as the enemy, you see it as the teacher. This teacher shows you patience, how to enjoy silence, and that your worth is not tied to whether someone sits across the table from you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that wherever a man goes, he can always find the most peaceful refuge, and that place is within his soul. We have already seen that refuge when we learn to love our companionship, and once we know how to rest in that shelter, we no longer panic at being left alone. Instead, we begin to look forward to those moments as an essential part of life. In real life, those who love themselves are often recognized by their calmness. They can sit alone in a cafe without feeling out of place. They can walk through the park without a companion and still feel complete. They can switch off their phone for an evening and spend the time with a book, with music, or with their own breath. They do not need others to fill them because they are already full from within. Every other relationship changes when you truly learn to love your own companionship. You no longer step into love or friendship with a sense of lack. You arrive whole, and that wholeness frees you from clinging, controlling, and losing yourself. Love is no longer a place where you run from loneliness, but a gift you give from the abundance within. Learning to love your companionship is also how you build an inner fortress. In that fortress, you are safe even when the world outside is in chaos. You no longer tremble at the fear of abandonment because you have learned never to leave yourself. And with that foundation, you are finally free to love, live, and step into the world without dependence. Truth 6. Detox from the need for praise. There is something that quietly controls many lives: the thirst for praise. We post a picture and wait for the likes, tell a story and wait for reactions, and live with our eyes always watching for the approval of others. But the more we live this way, the more we lose our core, because our decisions no longer come from within, but are guided by the desire to please the crowd. The Stoics understood that dependence on praise is nothing less than a poison. Seneca reminded us that the ones who spend all their effort trying to please others are no longer themselves. When you drink this poison, it tastes sweet at first, but over time it weakens you, makes you fragile, and robs you of the strength to stand on your own. The hunger for praise shows itself most clearly in daily choices. You choose a career not because you love it, but because it looks successful. You shop not because you need something, but because you want admiration. You speak safe words not because they are your true beliefs, but because you fear being mocked. Each time this happens, you hand over a piece of your soul for others to hold, waiting for them to decide whether you are worthy. Detoxing from this need is difficult because it has seeped into us since childhood. As children, we learned to run to adults for a kind word. We did right, they smiled. We did wrong, they frowned. And we grew up believing that our worth always lies in someone else's hands. But to live free, we must relearn from the beginning. Accept that sometimes we will be misunderstood, criticized, or looked down on, and none of that makes us any less. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be willing to be thought foolish by others." That is the antidote. When you dare to be seen as lesser, you finally escape the trap of praise. Because once you no longer need it, you are free to live in your own truth. In modern life, detoxing from the need for praise can begin with small acts. Write a thought in your journal with no one else to read it, and dress in the way that feels comfortable instead of chasing trends and declining an invitation that does not fit you, even if it makes you look unfriendly. Each time you do this, you take back a piece of authority from others and return it to yourself. With practice, you begin to feel a new kind of peace. No more tension when someone dislikes you. No more anxiety when your words are not applauded. No more hunger to prove your worth. Instead, there is a quiet confidence, not loud but steady. The belief that your value has always been enough without anyone's stamp of approval. And the paradox is, once you stop seeking praise, you become more respected. Because people are always drawn to independence. The one who does not beg for recognition naturally radiates a strength that makes others look up. But by then, praise is no longer oxygen. It is only passing wind. Nice to have, but not necessary. Detoxing from the need for praise frees you from the invisible chain that has bound so many. Once you are free, you will feel lighter, stronger, and finally able to live your own life, not copy what the crowd expects. Truth 7. Build strength in silence. There is something most people fear, and that is silence. When the world's noise disappears and there is no one left to talk to or cover the emptiness, we begin to hear the echoes inside ourselves. Many rush to escape, reaching for a relationship, a phone screen, or a distraction to avoid facing themselves. But silence is not the enemy. It is the training ground for the mind and the place where inner strength is forged. The ancients repeatedly reminded us that there is no refuge more peaceful than the soul within you. In silence, there is no one to blame, no place to run, and no excuse to delay. There is only you and your honest thoughts. At first, that can feel heavy, even suffocating, but it is within that challenge that growth is born. Just as the gym is for the body, silence is the gym for the mind. Every hour you dare to stay with silence is another weight lifted for your willpower, another stretch of your endurance, another layer of strength built for your spirit. In silence, you learn to listen more clearly. You begin to recognize which voice is fear, which is desire, and which is the truth you once avoided. You know how to face anxiety, sadness, and emptiness, but instead of letting them swallow you, you learn to observe, identify, and rise above. Like sitting by a river, you watch emotions drift by without needing to jump into the current. When you are brave enough to remain in silence, you gradually discover a rare strength in the ability to comfort, motivate, and lift yourself back up. You no longer wait for someone's message to feel valuable. You no longer need praise to hold confidence. You begin to build energy from within. And once you reach that point, you are not easily shaken. A breakup, a rejection, or a criticism cannot destroy you because you have already stood through long nights of silence and remained unbroken. The fascinating thing is those who have learned to be strong in silence often become more attractive in the eyes of others. They do not radiate desperation or cling to prove their worth. They walk into a room with calm authority and quiet composure without needing to boast. That is the kind of strength people can feel even before you speak a word. Silence does not make you cold. It makes you steady. It does not make you distant. It makes you stronger so that you are not easily carried away when you step into relationships or face challenges. Every moment of silence is a layer of armor for your spirit, another brick laid into your inner fortress. So do not rush to escape when night falls and quiet surrounds you. See it as an opportunity to train. Please sit down, breathe, listen, and let silence do its work, because only when you can stand firm in silence will you be strong enough to stand firm in the noise of the world. Truth 8. Focus on your mission instead of pleasing others. Living to please others is one of the biggest traps that leads people astray. They adjust their schedules, sacrifice their sleep, change their habits, even set aside their dreams to hold together a relationship that only looks stable on the outside. They forget that we were born with a mission, a unique path no one can walk for us. When you live to please others, you lose that path. When you choose to live single, you take back the freedom to focus on your mission. You do not have to explain why you wake up to work at 4 in the morning. You do not have to ask permission to spend a weekend learning a new skill or to dedicate a whole month to a project that no one but you may understand. You can pour all of your energy into what your heart truly longs for without fearing that you are disappointing someone. Think of the people who left the most excellent marks in history. They all went through long seasons of solitude, not because they despised love or connection, but because they understood that to fulfill a mission requires near total focus. Focus not only on time, but on mental energy. The wrong relationship can drain both. Living for your mission means you dare to put your priorities first. You dare to turn down invitations that do not serve your goals. You dare to endure loneliness, to nourish the project, the dream, or the vision you believe has meaning. This may lead to misunderstanding, criticism, or even being called selfish. But as Epictetus reminded us, if you want to progress, be willing to be thought foolish. Because most of the world is busy pleasing others while you are choosing the more challenging path, the one that is truly worth it. When you focus on your mission, you begin to see the difference. You wake each morning with a purpose, not worrying about who might be displeased. You work with initiative, not in the endless race to smooth over a relationship. You feel a deep peace inside because you know each hour you live is carrying you closer to the person you want to become. The fascinating thing is that when you live with a mission, you become more magnetic. People may not say it, but they are drawn to those with clear direction, strong ideals, and the courage to live by them. The difference is, you no longer need their approval. You respect them, but you do not live to earn their consent. Focusing on your mission not only carries you further, but also makes you more honest with yourself. You know precisely why you decline a relationship. Do not waste time in shallow pleasures and choose long nights of work over short hours of chasing validation. You do not do this to prove anything. You do it because the mission is what keeps you alive, what keeps you strong, what keeps you free. One day, if you meet the right person, you will step into the relationship, not as someone searching for shelter, but as someone who already has a mission, has direction, and only wants to share the journey. That is mature love, where neither becomes the prisoner of the other, but both walk as allies on the same path. Do not see singleness as a space. See it as a golden time to invest all your energy into your mission. Because when you truly live for your purpose, you not only avoid wasting your life, you write a story you yourself will be proud of. Truth 9. Build emotional independence. One of the greatest strengths you can develop while living single is standing firm emotionally. Many people do not realize how dependent they are on others until a relationship ends. They rely on a partner to feel worthy, be reassured, and have support whenever they feel weak. But when that dependence is taken away, they collapse, lose direction, and believe they cannot stand on their own. Singleness forces you to learn how to take responsibility for your own emotions. There is no one to blame, no one to hide behind. You must face the long, empty nights, the bad days, the anxious moments. And it is precisely in those confrontations that you learn how to comfort yourself, lift yourself, and find joy in small things. That is the first step toward emotional independence. Epictetus once said, "No one is free if they have not mastered themselves." Mastery here is not only mastery of action, but mastery of emotion. When you are emotionally independent, your mood is no longer dictated by a late reply, sudden silence, or careless word. You no longer lose an entire day just because someone did not respond as you hoped. In truth, most emotional crises people go through are born of dependence. A rejection can break them down, and a breakup can turn them into a shadow of themselves. Not because the event was unbearable, but because they never trained in the ability to stand on their own. Singleness is a precious time to train that ability. You learn to lift your spirits with music, a book, and a workout. You can ease anxiety with deep breathing, journaling, and walking under the sunset. You learn to find confidence not in someone else's praise, but in your progress, even the smallest steps. When you build emotional independence, you become steadier. Life's shocks no longer knock you down so easily. Upheavals no longer drag you into a spiral of chaos. You are like a tree with roots deep in the soil. Even if the wind shakes the branches, the trunk stands firm. More importantly, emotional independence allows you to love more healthily. You do not step into a relationship seeking rescue to fill a void or to lean entirely on someone else. You step in from wholeness to share, to walk alongside, not to demand. And that steadiness makes love clearer, purer, and more lasting. Of course, there will be days that feel difficult. Long nights alone may awaken your vulnerability. But remember, whenever you leave loneliness without rushing to someone to fill the gap, you take another step towards strengthening your emotional independence. The truth is, you will never completely escape sadness or disappointment. But with emotional independence, you know how to face them and heal, and most importantly, you know that you are strong enough not to depend on anyone else to feel whole. Truth 10. Become whole before you share yourself. From childhood, we have been told a message that sounds romantic but dangerous. You are only complete when you find your other half. Songs, movies, even advice from family have planted the idea that true happiness only arrives when someone else walks beside you. But the truth is, no one can complete you but yourself. If you believe you are missing a half, you will enter every relationship with a lack, and sooner or later, that lack will consume you both. Living single gives you the chance to break that false belief. You begin to realize you were already whole. You do not need anyone to prove your worth. You do not need anyone to give you an identity. You do not need a relationship to feel that your life has meaning. When you overcome the fear of emptiness, you discover within yourself a steady foundation, a wholeness that cannot be shaken. Becoming whole does not mean becoming perfect. It means daring to face old wounds, heal the gaps inside your soul, and build habits that make you stronger each day. It is a patient journey, sometimes painful, but the result is a steadiness that no breakup, no rejection can ever break. When you step into a relationship from wholeness, everything changes. You no longer look for someone to fill a gap, but you choose to share joy, values, and energy already within you. Love at that point is not an exchange built on deficiency, but a gift born from abundance. You love not because you need, but because you want. You give not to receive, but because you are already full enough to give. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that a happy life requires very little, because all of it lies in the way you think and in your mind. Wholeness is the same. It does not come from what others bring, but from knowing who you are and being enough. Once you find wholeness, you will see your relationships become healthier. No more clinging, no more fear of abandonment, no more sense that you must trade yourself away to keep someone. You enter love with freedom. If you must leave, you leave with freedom. You keep your identity, your peace, and your sovereignty. And here is the paradox. When you no longer need love to feel whole, you become someone capable of loving even more deeply. Because your love is not stained by fear or shortage, it is clear, it is free, it is enduring. Remember, singleness is not an empty waiting room. It is the training ground, the forge, where you find true wholeness. When the day comes when you decide to share yourself with someone, you will do it from strength, not from lack. That is love that cannot be shaken, because it begins from a soul already whole. Many see singleness as a void to fill a temporary condition that must be escaped quickly. But after walking through these 10 truths, we see clearly that singleness is not a lack, it is a gift, an opportunity to train and to grow. This is not the stage where you are left behind. It is the stage where you prepare to step into life with more strength and clarity than ever before. Singleness teaches you to avoid wrong attachments, to protect your time, to build self-control, to keep your energy pure, to learn how to love yourself, to escape the trap of seeking approval, to build strength in silence, to focus on your mission, to cultivate emotional independence, and finally, to discover wholeness within yourself. These are 10 layers of armor that allow you to walk through life without being pulled by the chaos. 10 foundation stones that build a strong base for a free life. And most importantly, when you live single with intention, you are no longer running from the fear of being alone. You begin to enjoy it, to see its value, and to use it as fuel for your journey of self-building. Each day is not wasted, but another step closer to the person you long to become. From the first truth to the last, the core message remains the same. True strength does not come from having someone beside you. It comes from your ability to stand firm on your own. Once you have that foundation, every relationship after is a choice, never a necessity. And it is that choice that creates mature, free, and enduring love. So if you are single, do not see it as a failure or a loss. See it as an invitation to enter the journey of freedom training and discovering the strength buried deep within you. This is not a waiting room. It is a decisive stage where you rewrite your story, no longer dependent, no longer afraid, only clear and strong. And now ask yourself, will you use this time of singleness to complain or to build a version of yourself so strong and free that nothing can shake it? That answer will decide not only your present, but also your future. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Each of us has faced long, silent nights and empty days, but it is in those very moments that true strength is forged. If these truths have touched you, share your experience below in the comments. I want to hear your story to know what you have learned from your time alone. And if you want to continue building the inner fortress together, where freedom and strength are the foundation, hit subscribe. We still have many journeys ahead, many lessons to train through together. True strength is not only found in philosophy, but in daily practice.